Today I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long time, and that is test an Air CPU cooler. The ETS-T50X is a new CPU cooler from Enermax that was released in September of this year. Now, I was intrigued by the design and overall look of the cooler and decided to take it for a spin, especially since I haven't seen anything quite like it before. Now, there are quite a few things that separate this cooler from the rest of the pack, but its overall dimensions and weight are pretty consistent with the industry standard. The ETS-T50 claims an impressive 230 watt plus TDP, stunning black coating, aggressive heatsink fin design, 5 asymmetrical heat pipes for increased RAM compatibility, and a high pressure 120mm fan with addressable RGB with or without motherboard control, and a rotatable air guide for preferred airflow direction. All of these lead to an extraordinary profile on paper, and I stress on paper. So let's get on to my experience, starting with the pros. Number one, and personal favorite, is the rotatable air guide, which sold me on the purchase of the cooler. This thing is the bee's knees, and I've never seen anything like that personally from any other vendor. It's quite an innovation, and it sets itself apart from the competition. The next thing is the overall footprint of the cooler. As the spec sheet states, the asymmetrical heat pipe design does lend to a very flexible application of various RAM modules. You can place with little to no interference from the cooler, and installation was fairly straightforward with a pretty simplified assembly process. It's not quite up to some higher tier competitors like CryoRig or Noctua, but it's close enough. The bracket style installation of the fan and air guide moved the process along pretty quickly without the need of cumbersome fan clips that can mar the coating of the black heatsink like this one. And this type of system is greatly appreciated. The next part is the fan, which is pretty quiet under load. Now, it is noted that it is addressable RGB, so you're gonna have to make sure that your motherboard does have one of those headers on it, or I don't know if they make some sort of adapter where it can go from the traditional RGB header to the addressable RGB header. Now we move on to the cons. The ETS-T50 was tested on my Intel test bench, and I ran it through two types of benchmarks. The first run was with the hardcore approach. The setup was pushed to 5 GHz on all cores with the XMP profile activated. The cooler was running for 5 minutes to give it ample time to heat up and to
show me what you got.
The second test was with the stock base and boost clock speeds with no XMP settings for a straight out of the box performance metric, and then an idle operation test. So I guess that's 3 tests and not 2. Now, the novelty wore off when the selling points of this cooler didn't meet up with the results of my testing. Under the first test, the CPU reached a max temp of 100 degrees Celsius, which is really, really hot. Granted, the CPU was overclocked pretty high, so I kind of took that test with a grain of salt. I then reset the parameters and tested it again with the base settings, and the CPU maxed out at 91 degrees Celsius. Now, I've tested quite a few coolers, and albeit with less cores, but around the same parameters. So I was less than impressed with Enermax's claim of 230 watt plus TDP rating, which Gamers Nexus pointed out in another video can be a little subjective at times. The labs test had the cooler operate in the range I expected, which was anywhere from 32 to 36 degrees at idle. Now, even though the cooler had no linear approach to mitigating the heat and climbed quickly, it did, however, maintain that temperature with 0 fluctuations. When it got to 91°C, it stayed 91°C. So something about the design choice must be working for them. Now, I don't know if Enermax's choice of coating the aluminum heat fins is impeding its ability to excavate the heat, or the choice of the thermal paste for effective heat transfer, but something is a huge contributing factor in the cooler's mediocre cooling ability. Now, you also have to consider that Noctua took over a year to find the right coating technique to apply to their new Chromax coolers to offer the same performance as their coolers that don't have that treatment. So it may be something Enermax might want to revisit. There are some other suggestions I think they could do, like maybe a push-pull configuration, or even a better fan to push more air, or a redesign of the heatsink fans themselves. Some may argue that you could use another type of thermal paste for the better temps, but you have to remember all the people that this may be their first computer setup, or a simple replacement of a worn part that they may not even be aware or even able to entertain that option. That is why out-of-the-box performance is so important to me. Modding or even adapting a product to increase performance It's not a skill everyone is blessed with, and sometimes you just need a particular item just to work without input from the end user. Also, the rotating air guide is a real novel. It's a real novel idea, but it's kind of worthless. I felt like the air was radiating instead of being directed in any particular direction. Honestly, it probably performs better with the air guard off. Now, this isn't to say that this cooler isn't worth purchasing. It's a very unique and a very cool looking cooler. I mean, with the addressable RGB and the overall design language of the cooler, I think it would look nice in a lot of builds. You have to be real selective for the application for it to perform well, and that isn't with anything that you want to heavily overclock. Moderate to low frequencies seem to be acceptable range, and decent airflow in the case may help it further. Enermax gets an A for effort, but a C for the final grade. The $59 price tag doesn't do it any favors either, even though RGB is a premium these days, so if you know exactly what you need your cooler to do, go ahead and pick this one up. But don't be fooled by that 230 watt marketing on the box. You could probably make your own beef jerky on this thing. Now, if you guys liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. You know, you can like the video, but also subscribe. And also don't forget the little notification bell to let you know when the new videos are coming out. And like always, guys, be awesome, be heavy, and we'll see you on the next one.